Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know that I've been hinting at a build for the Corvette that's been coming up. Well, it's finally time. I know my previous video I did the coilover adjusters. That wasn't just to adjust it for, drag racing, one time. It was going to be coordinated with this this build, as I'm going to call it. So the first part of this build is in my hand. Some of you might recognize this as a ethanol sensor. That's exactly what this is. This is an E85 sensor from a company called DSX Tuning. David Steck, he's on Facebook, he's on Corvette Forum, he's on a bunch of the groups, and I actually found his information through Corvette Forum. But what happened was a lot of people took his designs, stole them, made them for themselves, and he deleted all his old posts. Like, you could tell his posts had good information in it of how to add ethanol to your Corvette. Well, so what he did is he went into business for himself. I think he calls his company DSX Tuning or David Steck something Tuning, and I'll have a link in the description below. But I reached out to David because I needed an E85 setup for my car, but I'm not running the stock fuel rails, I'm not running the stock fuel lines from the firewall going to the motor, because I've got the E4 setup. So this setup was going to have to be custom, and a lot of the E85s got like setups, they have like bent tubing in it, and with my setup I needed something that was going to be pretty small and pretty straight. So what David did was he made, this is actually for a Camaro, like a 5th gen Camaro, so your 09 to 2014 Camaro. And so what he did was he took that kit and then he changed out the wire harness to work with my ECM, because I've got my 2005 ECM, it's called an E40 ECM, and the 2006 and newer are called an E38. Of course, 2005 being a transition year, it's a little different. I don't think the 05 PCM is as robust as the newer cars, so I might have some limitation with how I can use this setup. So like I was saying, the 2005 Corvette has what they call the E40 PCM. It's like a transition year between the old LS1 style, the 2005 LS2 style, and then the 2006 newer Corvettes used an E38 ECM, which is even smaller. So what David did was he sold me the Camaro kit, but he changed out the wire harness for a 2005 specific Corvette wire harness. Now, like I was showing earlier, you've got the sensor. It's from Continental. It's just your standard E85 flex fuel sensor. And then you got this billet piece on the end that David custom CNC machines, and it's basically just a double-sided 3/8 fuel, plug. So I'll plug the firewall in here. This is obviously plugged into the sensor. Then I'll take this red cap off and I'll plug in the fuel line coming out for the Edelbrock kit. So I've got the fuel line here, got this, and it'll plug in something like that. Now, how David powers the sensor is pretty simple. It's pretty cool. I don't have to run any harnesses. I don't have to run any lines. I literally will just unplug the coil pack right here, plug in this to the wiring harness, and this will basically take power from this coil pack on the driver's side. So that's how you get power. Then how you send signal to the PCM, that's this harness right here, and it's pretty cool. David actually sends this harness with the pin already on it. So it's literally going to be plug and play. I don't have to do any soldering, any custom wiring, any looking for power source or grounds. He takes care of it with the plug and play kit. So like I said, he makes this basically a plug and play kit. And all I have to do really is unplug the fuel line, unplug the coil pack, plug in the adapter, plug into the coil pack, plug into the harness, all that. I have to run this single wire down behind the motor down into the behind the battery and then down into the PCM. And the PCM on the Corvettes is literally below the battery behind the fender. So what I'm going to have to do is take the car apart a little bit, get it up in the air, take the wheel off, and the PCM will be right there. So I think I'm going to take off this RPI fender flare mud flap, splash guard, and not a mud flap, but splash guard. Take that off and get started. Okay guys, as you can see, got the Corvette up on the lift. That's kind of half the goal I wanted to get done today. First was get the Corvette up on the lift. The second goal today is to get the flex fuel sensor installed. So I don't really need the lift right now, but I will basically for the rest of the build. So might as well just get it up there. And when I'm done today, I'm just going to drop it back on the ground, take the safety pegs out and let it sit on the ground. Leave the wheels on the race ramps and we should be good to go. Shouldn't have any issue with it, you know, flipping off or anything, because it's going to be sitting on the ground. So, but let's get the car back on the ground and get started on that flex fuel sensor. The first step to install the flex fuel sensor will be to prepare the surface area. I got the paper towels, I got the fender covers, just because I don't want to drop anything on the paint. You know, take an extra 5 minutes and protect yourself. I also got plenty of paper towels in case I spill any fuel. The problem is with the aftermarket fuel rails that the Edelbrock supercharger comes with, I do not have a pressure relief valve that I can press in to depressurize the fuel rail. So this is going to be, it's going to spit out at me when I take the fuel line off. The first step is to take the safety clip off. Basically all this does is just hold the braided fuel line, and it just holds it and makes sure everything's tight so it doesn't ever loosen up or back off. Then you're to take your fuel disconnect tool. You can pick these up online. I'll have a link in the description below to one. And you basically just going to put it around the fuel rail and put some rags underneath the fuel line just to cover everything up, because this is going to leak a lot. Alright, now let's put the fuel line disconnect tool on the fuel line. Wow, that came off a lot easier than I thought it was going to. So the trick with these tools, you literally just have to get in the right spot. And actually a lot of fuel didn't come out. Now if I had tilted the blower or anything like that, there is a ton of fuel in those two fuel rails. Because basically, you can't see it, but there's a billet fuel rail. Underneath here, there's an AN fitting, another steel braided hose underneath the supercharger. Then it goes up to the other supercharger, other side of the supercharger, another billet rail, and the injectors. So that was pretty simple. Okay, I have disconnected the fuel line. Like I said, I covered up the fuel rail. Now, I pretty much got one of two options. I can either disconnect the fuel line up here against the supercharger, put this adapter in. Actually guys, that won't work. The fuel has to go through the sensor. Yes, so literally your fuel source has to come in, fuel the little sensor intake in here, sensor pickup spot. The fuel has to go through the sensor and out. I was thinking about putting it this way, but what would happen was your fuel system would come in from the wrong side. It would not be coming in through the sensor. It would go through, yeah, it would be going the wrong way. So basically we're going to be something like that and like that. Of course this is just mock-up. Something like that. Plug it into the sensor. Or the other way I was thinking about it, it would be the sensor. What I could do is actually flip this billet line. I always could flip that. Flip this to this side. And if I flipped it that way, You know, so if I flipped it this way, the fuel would be coming in, go through the sensor and out. That would be one way to do it. But if you guys can see, this intercooler hose, this electrical wire, and this vacuum hose coming off the LS9 valve cover, they're all literally fighting for the same space. And that fuel rail billet, the 180 degree fitting is right here. So I'm not liking where that would have to mount. You know, even if I flipped this like that, you know, and flip the billet sensor, the billet piece around, I don't like where that's sitting, because they literally all would be fighting for the same spot, versus mounted right here. You know what, guys, let's disconnect the I don't like where this flex fuel sensor would be sitting. Literally it would be touching the blower almost. Yeah, it would be touching the upper head of the supercharger, because the intercooler bricks are literally right below this this top piece of aluminum. So yeah, I mean, that would literally have to be like right there. Ooh, I'm not a big fan of that. So let's clean that up. See, I told you there's gonna be plenty of fuel in here. And also, guys, I'm also wearing disposable gloves, just because I know that this was gonna be a messy job. So pretty much showed you the two options I have for mounting this flex fuel sensor, but I don't like either of them. Well, I don't like that one. This one's better. So we're gonna mount this onto the hard line coming out of the fuel firewall. Plug this in. Okay, cool. We have part of the sensor in. Now we have to get this billet piece. Okay, guys, as you can see, I have the flex fuel sensor installed. I have some paper towels just under, just to see if I can see any leaks. I have pulled the fuse for the fuel pump over there. I ran a jumper wire through it, ran it for like 10 or 15 seconds. Didn't see any fuel coming out, and it should be sending, that pump will be sending fuel up to the fuel rail. So I'm not seeing any fuel leaking. As you know, I don't have the power to that sensor yet, but that sensor shouldn't prevent the car from running. So what I'm going to do next is fire the car up, make sure that that fuel line's not leaking, and then we'll go from there. Okay, guys, let's fire the car up and make sure that fuel line's not leaking. Okay, guys, as you saw, no leaking from the fuel rail, no fires, thankfully. This could have gone bad real quick, but thankfully the fuel line stuff's not having any issue with that. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed the install of the E85 sensor. Overall, not too difficult. I had some trouble getting that metal adapter fitting, that billet adapter plugged in. Basically what I needed to do was actually like stretch out those clamps, those forks in the inside of the sensor, because like it wouldn't go on. I had to put it on my other LS3 intake manifold. That one has a much easier fuel rail. It still has a fuel rail attached to the manifold, so I could just slide it in and off, and finally it worked itself loose a little bit, and I was able to pry it off the intake manifold, put it onto the fuel rail, and it slid right in. So not overly complex install, just, you know, disconnect a few hoses and put the new sensor in. And like I said, just be safe with that. You know, gasoline vapors are very flammable, so don't have any electronics near it, no cigarettes or fire or anything like that. And just make sure you have lots of gloves and you know, paper towels just to clean up everything. Fire extinguisher would be a good thing too, which is something I need to invest in. So thanks, guys, for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please do Thanks and have a great day.